Hi, I'm Tash and welcome to my channel Mostly Knitting. This is a bonus video episode with my projects that I finished in 2022. I just thought, seeing I started my personal podcast this year, at the start of this year in 2023, it might be nice to put a podcast now of like what I'd made last year. And it was quite interesting for me to see what I had made and finished last year, and how different it was from a lot of my previous knitting. So I've been knitting really regularly every day for about the last 15 years, and I've been knitting since I was 8 years old, but I sort of got back into it when I had 3 children all at home under 5, and just really needed something for myself that was just a project that I could plan and purchase the yarn for, and it was just for me, and it wasn't something that was going to have to be done the next day exactly the same, like laundry or dinners or whatever. So it's just been such a wonderful part of my life. And over the years, especially when I was at home full-time with the kids, I made a lot more sweaters and a lot more complicated knits. And that sort of, that continued. I still made a lot of sweaters and dresses over the years, but the last couple of years, I've had just a lot of personal challenges for the last 2 years, and I find even though knitting is still there for me, it's just switched what I've been making. So I've been making more really simple. I noticed this year I've been making a lot more simple knits, knits where I haven't had to think. So life seems to be a little bit more settled now, sort of coming out of a difficult, sort of challenging period of time. And I feel like I have the headspace to do a few more complicated knits, but for a couple of years there, I was really looking for just comfort knitting, a lot of stockinette in the round. So you'll see quite a bit of that in my knits from 2022. And we'll see what happens in 2023. If you're watching my channel and you've seen my last 5 episodes, I've had some more, involved makes. I've had, some sweaters and dresses and things with cables and lace and stuff. So I feel like that's kind of more what I usually do, but it'll be interesting to sort of see, what I've made this last year anyway. So what I made in 2022, I'll just put a little summary up here. I made 9 hats, I made 4 sweaters, I made 1 top and 2 pairs of socks and 1 shawl, and I think that's it. So, a reasonable amount. The hats themselves were actually full skein hats, so there was a fair bit of knitting in those, but just in general, it's, I would say the output was pretty low last year, and that's okay, because it's not like, I'm not knitting for a job, but just in terms of the amount of time and energy that I had to give to it last year was a lot less than perhaps I had in years gone by. All right, so I'll get started with the hats. So I made all the same pattern. I made 9 Musselburgh hats, and these were my comfort knitting hats. I did most of them, even though you can use a lot of different weight yarns, I did most of them out of fingering weight. So a couple of sport weight yarns. A few of them I knit as gifts, so I made 9 hats, and 4 of them were gifts, so I only have 5 here to show you, but I will put some pictures up here of any picture that I managed to take before I gave them away. So the sport weight ones that I made a Madeline Tosh Pashmina one, which I gave away, and then this one's a Collinette Jitterbug hat, and I'll try a couple of them on. That one, that's I think I definitely like them better in the fingering weight. I think when it's double thick already, and then when you fold over the brim, like this is 4 thicknesses of yarn, so I actually feel like even with sport, it's a little bit full on. If I was to knit it with a DK weight yarn, I don't even think I would manage, I would do it with a brim, although obviously it's going to keep your head really warm in winter, and I really don't like it when it's windy and the wind gets in my ears. I find it really bothers me, so I think this hat pattern is great for that. And I've played around with the length of them, so this is kind of what it looks like. You do a pinhole cast on, which I am planning on doing a knitting tutorial for that, and then you increase 8 stitches every other round until you get to, I think with the sport weight yarns, I got up to 120 stitches, and then I knit straight for a while, and then you decrease pretty much every other round until you get back down to 8 and then complete it. So that was the Collinette Jitterbug one. This one was a handmaiden Casbah yarn, This is the longest one that I made. So I think they've ranged from tip to tip from about 22 inches to this one's about 26 inches. So this one's pretty long, and that one's not only fold over, but it's also sort of a little bit slouchy as well. I really love this yarn. It's such a beautiful color. It's sort of brown and gray. So that's kind of the longest one. And then I've made it in these two are in Madeline Tosh Merino Light, and this was one that my son picked. That's kind of roughly his school color. So he asked for a skein of he asked for me to knit one in his school colour. And then this one is Mare, Madeline Tosh Merino Light Mare. I think this one's called Malmo. And this was a mystery yarn. I actually don't know what this yarn is, but my aunt might know because when she's finished some projects, she gives me her leftovers, and I had almost a full skein of that one. So, and it felt like fingering weight. And so with the fingering weight, I use a 3.25mm needle, and I have 134 stitches. So you just need to get to a multiple of 8. So I did 134 stitches on that one, and then on the sport weight ones, I generally make 120 stitches, unless it's for someone with a larger head, and I used 128 stitches then. So that's just such, like, you know, perfect playground knitting, or knitting when it's dark, or I just need to not be able to, I need to be able to not pay attention, so my attention's somewhere else and I can just knit away. So I feel like I always want to have one of these on the needles. It is a lot of knitting, so I sort of think, well, I either work on that or socks when I just sort of need to do not very much. So they're my Musselburgh hats. There's a couple of different patterns that are quite similar. Like there's a Brooklyn tweed pattern that's quite similar, and I think there might even be a petite knit one that's quite similar. But I think the style itself is pretty generic. You know, pinhole, increase, stockinette, straighten the round, decrease, and then close it up. Yeah, so, and I think it's probably a pretty good gift pattern because it's quite unisex as well, and the fit can be sort of, people can fold it up as much as they like, or they can have it quite slouchy if they like. So yeah, so I think that's a really great gift knit pattern. Socks, I will put up here the socks that I gave away. I knit a pair of monkey socks with Hazel Knits Artisan Sock in the Portobello colorway, and that's kind of quite a hefty 4-ply yarn, and I used 2.5mm needles, so it made a pretty sizable sock, and the gift recipient I think wears them as bed socks, but they're really nice. They're nice socks, and yeah, I was really happy to make them, but they did feel like they came out on the slightly larger side. Then I knit quite densely, so if I used a 2.25mm needles with that yarn, I think that would have been really, really tight and quite hard on my hands. The other sock, so I only made 2 pairs of socks. The other pair of socks that I made were Rose City Rollers, and I used Knitterly Things Vespa sock yarn in, I'm trying to think what colorways they were. That was pink and magenta, right? So, and I didn't have quite enough of the pink, so I decided to do the toes in a different color. I realized I was going to run out. So yeah, anyway, they're nice. I quite like having, I'd like to make more shorty socks. So either I make Rose City Rollers, and that's on a 2.25mm needle, which is my standard, or I'll make toe-up socks, Wendy Johnson's toe-up socks, fingering toe-up socks with a gusset heel, and then I'll just, when I get to the top, I'll either do a roll cuff or ribbing and just finish them off so they're short. But those ones were actually the Rose City Rollers, and they were knit top down with a heel flap, and where you pick up the stitches and decrease down. Right, so that's the socks. The shawl, I made one shawl, and that was a gift, so I've already given it away. I didn't take a great photo of it, but I will put a picture up here. That was a gift from my mum, and that I made right at the start of the year. That was, I think, my first finished object, and that was using Volmai's 80/20 Twin, and that was in the colour Marlin Steam, which is a really pretty purple. And Henslowe, I think that's by Beth Kling, and I'd been wanting to make, I think I bought that pattern, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. I've been wanting to make it for a really long time. And my mum wears a lot of shawls, and she really likes hand knits, so I make hand knits for her, and her sister does as well. And my mum is a beautiful knitter, but I think she's just doesn't really enjoy it that much anymore, so she's quite happy to get knitted objects from people who make things for her that she likes and wears very regularly. So she's very knit worthy, my mum. All right, so that's my hats, 2 pairs of socks and a shawl, and the last thing I made is I made 4 sweaters and 1 top, which I'm wearing. So I'll talk about that at the end. The sweaters that I made, the first one that I made, this was So Faded, and I used the top 3 colors, and I'm actually, if you've been watching any of my other videos, you've seen these 3 colors, because I'm using the leftovers to make another Musselburgh hat, which is actually almost finished. But this was the Ursa Major colorway. So the top 3 are Ursa Major, and then the last one is Tosh Merino Light again in Dopamine. And I used a 3.5mm needle for the body and a 3mm needle for the neckband. It's quite a tight neckband, and so you pick up the stitches afterwards and then bind off, and like it's only just sort of comfortable to get on and off. But I'm really happy with how it came out. I like the yarn, I like the sweater. It's got this sort of garter detail just on the top of the shoulders, and then it switches to stockinette. Yeah, it's really nice. I think I probably, like, I like it, but I would maybe, and I made a second one, you'll see that's another one of my foes, but if I were to make it again, which I would like to, because I think it's a great pattern for a fade, I would maybe go up a size even, just to make it a little bit more oversized and a bit more comfortable. I'm finding over the years that the sweaters that I made, you know, maybe 10 years ago, I rarely wear because they're very fitted. So the style that I was going for 10 years ago was much more, you know, lots of waist shaping, no ease or slightly negative ease. And these days I'm just going for the things that I'm reaching for are this, like my Ingalls sweater, which I made, this isn't the one I made this year, but it's very like the one I made this year. They're the ones that I'm reaching for, and they're the ones with a lot of positive ease. So yeah, so I think if I was to make this again, I would go up a size or 2 even, just to make it a little bit more oversized. Okay, so that's my first So Faded, and I made another one in, this was Life in the Long Grass. The top 3 colors are Life in the Long Grass, I think it's linen merino, so there's a 10% linen component to that. And what is so interesting about this, if you take a look at those first 2 colorways, see that the top one, which is really light, and the next one, which is quite gold, they are technically the same colorway. They are both frosting, which I think is just bizarre. But I mean, I know that colorways can differ, but that's a lot. So anyway, I bought 2 frosting, but were obviously very different, so I treated them like 2 different colors. And then the third one is a color called Dreamer. Oh, sorry, that's this pink one here, this quite pink one here. Now the bottom one is another mystery yarn from my aunt. So I don't know, but it was another single ply yarn. And it looks like, this is the leftovers. It's, I don't know if it, I actually have no idea what it is. It looks maybe a bit like apple blossom, or anyway, if anyone recognizes that colorway, I'd be very interested to know. And I'm pretty sure she bought that from Skein Sisters, because that's where she buys a lot of her, and she does buy yarn overseas as well, but if she's buying it locally, she usually buys it from Skein Sisters. So they're those 4, each one I used 4 colorways. I think you can kind of, you know, mess around with how many you like. I made that one, I was much more conscious to bind this off really loosely. When I bind off, I usually use a needle size, either 1 or 2 sizes up. And I'm just quite careful when I bind it off that it's, you know, I'm consciously really, I might do a video on that actually, on how to bind off, because the binding off, when it becomes quite tight, I think it's actually not to do with the size of the stitch you make, it's pulling on that stitch to get enough tension on it to take the yarn over, that actually then tightens up the stitch. So it was perfectly fine to begin with, but then when you pull it a bit too tight just to get that, you know, past that yarn over, that's what tightens up the stitch. So being able to hold the tension so that you can get that yarn over, but not so much that you make the stitch smaller. And that just takes a little bit of practice, but I think that's the key component in keeping your bind off not too tight. And of course you can always go up a needle size or two, which definitely helps. So anyway, that's my second sew faded, and I really love both of these, and I wear them pretty regularly, but I reckon I would wear them even more if they were a little bit bigger. So that's 2 sweaters. The third sweater that I will mention with, oh, maybe I'll mention later when I finish this one. This one is, or what is it? Junction by Andrea Mowry. That's the back, I think. Is it the back? No. Let me have a look. I'm very bad about, oh yes, that's the back. Okay, here we go. I usually can only tell because that's where I weave in the tails, and then that's my sort of, and if I was going to put a label, I'd probably put it there. So this is Junction by Andrea Mowry. It's got a fold over ribbed collar, and then it's brioche stitch, and then like a lice, just regular fair isle for the rest of the body. And for this one, I used a yarn that's from my local yarn store called Doish, and that's the blue yarn. And I managed to get away with just like bang on 2 skeins, which I was very happy about, because obviously when you've got colour work, you're using a lot of another colour, so you can get away with a bit less of the main colour. I wasn't sure I'd be able to make it. I thought I might have to make it a bit shorter in the body, but it's actually quite a good, a decent length. I'll put a picture of myself wearing it up there. And now I wanted to make this, but I had never done brioche. And so I didn't jump straight into this. I made a hat also by Andrea Mowry. I think it's called Harlow. And I thought that will just get me used to brioche stitch. And it was great because the whole hat is brioche stitch, 2-color brioche. And so I knit the whole hat, sort of got myself into the rhythm with it. Now, when I knit, I usually knit on a lot of different projects at a time. But when I was knitting on the brioche, because I really wanted to reinforce that, the concept of getting that down, I just knit on that hat and pretty much nothing else. And then after that, as soon as I'd finished it, I pretty much got onto this, so I could sort of. Now, this I finished. When did I finish this? I finished this in November last year, but I'd actually finished the brioche, I think, in April 2021. And then this sweater languished for a while. So I got past the brioche. And in fact, that's happened with both my other sweaters. They pretty much took me about 1.5 years because a lot of stuff happened in my personal life. All my sweaters and everything that just required attention and trying on, and do I like this length and all this sort of stuff, I just had to put it aside. I'm like, I just do not have the brain capacity. And I think that's really important in your knitting, is if it's something that is meant to be sort of pleasurable and enjoyable, if you're trying to force it or force yourself to concentrate on something that you're not really in a headspace for, you're going to make mistakes or you're just going to be discouraged. So I thought, you know what, you're going to go aside. I'm just going to knit on socks and hats and blankets and other things for a couple of years until I'm sort of ready to pick these things up again. So I knit the Harlow hat in 2021, some early 2021. Then I knit the body of this pretty much straight after, and I was actually quite I don't think I made a single mistake on this one, but I did make a mistake. I dropped a stitch in the hat, and I was really iffy about how to fix it, and I found a great YouTube video, which I will link below, on how to fix a drop stitch. I was so relieved to find it, and as soon as it happened, I went, you know what, I do not have the capacity to fix this. I don't know how to fix this, so I just put some stitch markers in it and put it aside, looked up what to do, and then fixed it. And I was really glad to have made that mistake on the hat, so that if I made one on this, I could, I knew what to do. I think that's really important when you're starting a new project, to feel confident that if you make a mistake, because it happens, you drop a stitch, it's quite normal, but then how do I fix it in brioche, which is very different to fixing mistakes in regular stockinette stitch or garter stitch or even lace or anything. So yeah, so anyway, I really like this. I forgot to mention the contrast color is a Spin Cycle dyed in the wool, which is the sport weight, and I can't remember the name of the colorway. I bought it from Skein Sisters though, so you know, I could ask them to have a look and see what exactly it was. It was kind of sort of a yellowy colour. I'm not sure why I didn't write it down, but anyway, I'm really happy with how that came out, and it's really nice and warm and squishy. So that's my other sweater that I made for me. The fourth sweater that I made right at the end of the last year, which I also showed in my episode 5. I'll just show it again quickly. This is not it. It was a gift. So, but it was to mimic this one for a friend, and you know, so it's just so. And she's quite similar. She's slightly broader shoulder than me and slightly taller, so I just made it like a little bit bigger and a little bit longer. So the yarn that I used for hers, this was Madeline Tosh Pashmina, but for her I had yarn in stash that was Madeline Tosh MCN, so Merino Cashmere Nylon 80-10-10 fingering in the Bloomsbury colorway, and I used Isia Silk Mohair in the colorway Mint. So those two together, so the Bloomsbury's quite a blue, but the Mint has the green, and those two together made a colour very similar, and I'll put a picture up here of that one. And the contrast colour, I had some Madeline Tosh Pashmina left over in the Duchess colourway, and I also had some Rowan Kid Silk Haze in Black Currant in stash, so there was just enough of each of those. So yes, I was really happy with that. And I knit that one, because it was for a gift, it was for a friend's 50th, I knit that one in 3 weeks. So when I'm focused and I'm like, yes, this is what I'm making. And the nice thing there is I knew she'd already tried mine on, and it was a repeat knit, and I knew she just needed a little bit more length in the body. So I was like, yep, I know what I'm doing. And I guess for me, I do like repeat knits for that reason. If I, you know, if I feel like I've already made all the decisions, I know how long I want it, I know this, you know, the size is good, and so I don't have as much second guessing. Is this, you know, am I going to be happy with this? Yeah, so they're the sweaters that I made, and the one top that I made, this is the Rocket Tee. I'll just stand up so you can see it. It's such a cute pattern. So that is, I forgot to write who it was down by I'll put it down below who wrote this pattern. Yeah, it's really cute. It's the leftovers from my I made a no frills sweater by Petite Knit, and I had quite a bit of yarn left over. So this is Louis and Lola. The 4-ply, the fingering weight is the Biffle nylon fingering, and the lace is the mohair silk lace. And this is another one that I started in April 2021, and I just had to put it aside because I don't know where I was at. I'd probably only just started it, and then I was just like, yep, can't do sweaters right now, and I put it aside. And then I think I picked it up, you know, I can't remember when I finished it, in June last year. So, and it didn't take very long, you know, because it's short sleeves obviously, and has like some nice I-cord sort of edging details, and yeah, I really like it. And even the bottom, like it's sort of finished in I-cord, and you can choose to finish it in the mohair or in the fingering, I guess depending on what you have more of. I only just had enough of the fingering weight, and I had a lot more of the mohair left, so I decided to finish it, and I actually really like it. Like I really like the finishing in the mohair. I think it's really pretty. And I would definitely make another one of these. I have to weigh, I don't know if I weighed it, and just to work out just how much I used, just to make sure. I do really like weighing my yarn at the start and at the finish, so that, because like I said, I like the whole repeat knit thing. If I already know what it takes, then I can, it's much easier. I know, yes, I'll have enough, and I don't have that nervousness going in, well, am I going to run out part way? So that is all of my finished objects for 2022. And yeah, I'll be interested, like I'll probably do another wrap up one of my 2023 ones at the end of this year, but it was interesting for me to see what I'd made and sort of what it reflected, what was going on in my life at the time. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But I'm feeling more like wanting to make more dresses and sweaters, and I do crochet a little bit. I don't think I crocheted at all last year, which is interesting, but I have made a number of blankets in the past, and I really like crochet for blankets. So, and I've been inspired. I've been watching some videos and seeing people's, you know, granny stripe blankets and things. That's a lot of knitting though. Crochet, it's a lot of crocheting. And I have to look when I crochet. I don't have to look at all when I knit, so I'm not sure if I have the stamina for that. But I've made a king size blanket out for my bed and single blankets for the kids' beds. but that was using it like Cascade 220, so that's a substantially heavier weight yarn than, you know, 4-ply fingering, which a lot of these granny stripe blankets are. Sort of, you know, you use your leftovers. Yeah, so anyway, it'll be interesting for me to see. I don't plan too far ahead. I know some people plan like, this is what I'm going to make in 2023. But I find when I do that, I usually change my mind or something else catches my eye. So, you know, I quite like just being sort of, and because I have an LYS locally and I do like to support them, then I can just watch and see what they've brought in or what colour sort of I get inspired by. I think I did show in my episode 5 that I'm going to make another, well, I guess I've got a few plans. I'm going to make another Ingalls sweater. So another one of these. I've already got the yarn either bought or ordered for it. I'm going to make another Ilha dress. My one's nearly finished, and I'm definitely going to make another one of those. I'm going to make an ebb dress. So yeah, I've got a few plans coming up. I've got some sock plans and another Musselburgh hat plan. So yeah, so anyway, thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, if you could like and subscribe, and that obviously, I guess, helps me feel like, yes, you liked it, and do more of the same. And feel free to put anything in the comments if there's any other kinds of videos that you'd be interested in. Otherwise, I'll just do my regular weekly videos on what I've been knitting, and maybe a midweek video on a tutorial. So I find, like, if I knit something and I think, oh, that'd be good for the tutorial as I'm knitting, like, oh, I missed a cable, or oh, I'm doing the pinhole cast on. So that's another one I'll do maybe next week, of the pinhole cast on for the Musselburgh hat. So yeah, if there's anything else that you think might be interesting for me to share, feel free to put in the comments, or anything that you're making that you think is really beautiful and you wanted to share, and then I can take a look at your project pages and see what you're making. So yeah, thanks for watching, and hope to see you again soon. Bye.